Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast with Lisa Bolton and Melissa Hartfield. We're two women who are artists and entrepreneurs, and yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creators, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living creating what they love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 16 of the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm Melissa. I'm here with my co-host, Lisa. Hey, Lisa.
Hello. We never record on a Friday. We're recording on a Friday
I know,
today.
Friday afternoon. So today we are talking about preparing to take time away from your business. That is actually quite hard to say. But we thought this was an appropriate topic for this time of year because we are heading into the summer months where it gets warmer and kids are out of school and the weather's nicer and we want to spend more time outside, and we might not be going a lot of places this summer, but I think people are still going to want to get out and maybe do some camping or do some staycationing close to home. And there's also a lot of people out there who maybe don't take time away from their businesses during the summer, but who do prep to take time away at different times of the year. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the things you can do to prepare for that in advance so that you really can enjoy that downtime that you're trying to take.
It's funny when you said some people don't take time off in the summer, and I think that's so true. There's so many people that do take it off other times of the year, depending on where in the world you are. And if you don't have to take it off when all the kids are out of school, all the power to you, because I think that sounds glorious. But I also think sometimes you might have clients who are taking time off in the summer. And so I thought one of the things we could talk about today too is how you might need to pivot even if you're still working, but your clients aren't maybe around as much, how you can kind of avoid any sort of sales slump or sort of down dip in your business and how you can kind of keep that momentum going. We had some really good episodes, I think, this month. Like we talked about episode 11 was on managing distractions and being efficient and productive. And we kind of continued that in episode 12 and really talked about how to really maximize through batching and just being able to get the stuff done, especially with people working at home these days. And so I think you don't want to lose that momentum. I find for me, and this is true as an at-home creative, but also even back in my banking days, would kind of come off of like spring break-ish time and the weather was starting to get better and the sun's coming out and you're kind of in a groove, like you're really on the hamster wheel, you're feeling good, everything's coming and you're in a system. And then I always felt like around that third week of July, things would sort of dip a little and people would start, I don't know, like lunches were longer, maybe people were cutting out early and there was just, you could just sort of sense there was a bit of a change happening. And sometimes I find that that's just a mode, just as much as we get really productive in September after being ingrained of that being a back to school time for our own upbringings. I think sometimes when those summer months roll around, there's a bit of a drop in productivity and efficiency. Never mind if you have kids at home that are not going to be going to school. So I think that if we can help sort of with some strategies and some systems and some ideas on how you can really maintain productivity and efficiency and, keep in touch with your clients and just get through any of that time, I think that's also going to be really beneficial. Plus, it might allow you to unplug. And I think you and I are both big believers that taking time away as an entrepreneur, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, is not going to crash and burn your business. And in fact, it's actually really, really good for your business sometimes creatively to step away. So hopefully this discussion will help with both aspects of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that when you start your own business and you go out and work on your own, for a lot of us, we do that for lifestyle reasons as much as we do it for other reasons. And, we want a better work-life balance, or we want to be able to set our own hours or just have more flexibility around when we work. We've referenced this a lot in the last few episodes that there's no one right way or wrong way to do any of this. You don't have to take the summer off. You could take, I don't know, if you're a big skier or a snowboarder, maybe take January off and hit the slopes. Or, if your business is a business that's really busy during the summer, like if you're wedding photographer, or I don't know, maybe you do face painting or something like that. Summer is a busy time for you. So maybe you choose to take your downtime at a different point in the year, or maybe you don't have kids, so you take your downtime in April and October and go traveling during the shoulder season when the weather's still nice, but everything's cheaper. There's so many different ways that you can go about taking downtime from your business. But I think the key, regardless of when you choose to step away for a little bit, is to plan as far in advance for it as you can, not just for yourself, but also for clients, customers, anyone who touches your business from any angle. And there's lots of really easy ways that you can start prepping people for the fact that you're going to be gone for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or maybe even a month. If you're lucky, a month off sounds really nice. And like Lisa mentioned, especially if you deal with corporate, anyone in the corporate field, things just sort of trickle to a halt. A lot of offices will do flex weeks where they work an extra hour a day and have every second Friday off, or those kinds of arrangements, which is something you can also implement in your own business too, by the way, over the summer. It really does kind of come down to what your business is and who the people that you interact with as part of your business that's going to help you decide how you're going to implement taking time away.
I think the plan ahead is the absolute number one. I think, ideally, if you can plan a year out and know your large time blocks that you're going to be taking off, but at a minimum, I think 6 months is probably, for most solo entrepreneurs, the amount of lead time that you need to plan for that time away. And it really becomes having a bit of a time away checklist. And I think it's something you could institute depending on how the workflow looks for your own business. Once you set it up, it might be something that you can refer back to every time you go to take away. One of the first things I would do, it's kind of twofold, I guess, two things. First, I would try to have somebody who could be, we used to call it like a 2IC, a second in command, someone who you could call or ask to do something for you while you're away. This especially applies if you're leaving the country or leaving town, whether your business is digital or you create a product, service, whatever it is. If you're leaving town and you're going to be in a different time zone or quite literally out of the country, it's really ideal if you can have somebody who is local or someone who knows a little bit about your space that you could have as a point of contact. I think about it if you're on a 12-hour flight somewhere and something goes sideways, if you're just wanting to be able to truly unplug and put your phone away, it's nice to have somebody that you could speak to your customers, could maybe handle an emergency for a short-term basis, who you trust enough that that their decision-making would be in the best interest of your company. And ideally, this is someone to whom you could do this for as well. We talked a little bit, I think even last episode, could have been the one before, about the importance of having a bit of a cohort of other self-employed people. They don't necessarily have to do your craft. They could even be in a completely different niche. But if it's someone who understands creative entrepreneurship, that would be someone that you could have handle something that came up. I think that's a really good place to start with. The other part I think that's important, the second to that, is having a list of which this might go counterintuitive to maybe what you're told from a security standpoint, but having a list of sort of access codes or a password if someone needed to get into a certain system to send something off for you, having, credentials or any sort of license number that might be important, but having a central location to that on a hard copy that would be something you could have sealed up that you would deliver to your 2IC, or something that you could encrypt digitally that you could send to them. But anything that would allow someone that you're putting in charge or as a helper to sort of access your business, it's going to take a lot of stress off of you if you know that you've kind of got that part taken care of just from a very logistical, technical perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's going to depend very much on the kind of business you run. I mean, if you're running an Etsy shop where you make crocheted baby hats, you can probably shut your shop down for a month and put a shop close notice up and go take time away, and things would be fine. But if you're doing anything like, let's say that you sell via your website or anything where if something technical goes wrong, you're the one that has to deal with it, not Etsy, then yeah, absolutely you're going to want to have somebody who could maybe troubleshoot for you, particularly if you're out of the country. When you leave the country is when things can get very difficult, especially if you go out of North America. It's also things like having just a simple like I have left all my client files on a separate physical hard drive, and left them at my neighbor's house when I've gone
Mm-hmm.
away in the past. Like something that simple, because, if something were to happen, like say your house were to burn down, and not to bring about all these horrible scenarios, but things happen, right? And if
Absolutely.
something were to happen to your house, like a fire or a flood or anything like that, and you were away and physically could not get back within the span of a few hours, you don't want to lose all that
Mm-hmm.
critical information. And if it's on a hard drive with somebody that you trust, then, things are going to be in chaos with your living situation for a while, but at least you can go pick up that hard drive and go buy another computer if you have to, and plug the two in and keep going
Mm-hmm.
relatively quickly. Whereas, if you didn't do that, it could take you weeks before you're able to spend time with your client or continue on with work. And that's just really added stress. And it's so simple. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It could just be leaving a sheet of codes with your mom
Yeah.
or a hard drive with your neighbor or something simple, so that if for some reason you needed somebody to help it, they're a phone call away, and you just literally call them up and say, I need you to go here and I need you to plug that code in and I need you to do this. You do want that person to be somebody that you have a pretty good level of trust with, which is why I said like your mom. Because
Mm-hmm.
your mom is going to want to make sure that your mom's not going to want to do anything to jeopardize your business. It's those things we don't like to think about, but if you think about them and you look after them. Like when I used to work in IT, we always used to joke that we have a backup of the backup of the backup. Because if you have three or four backups, you know what? You can breathe, right? And you might laugh, but when I worked in corporate, we weren't even allowed. There was a limit on how many members of the company could be on a plane at any
Mm-hmm.
given time, and we weren't a huge company. We had events throughout the year where almost the entire company would up and move to another city. I used to have to travel separately from a colleague, and we would both carry backups in our carry-on luggage, like on separate planes. Hopefully, you never have to use that, but just taking a few simple steps can really give you some peace of mind when it comes to things like that.
Well, that's really what you're buying yourself, right? It's you are buying yourself peace of mind.
When you're sitting on a beach sipping margaritas, that's what you want to have. You want to have complete peace of mind so that you can just breathe.
I agree with you. It completely depends on the nature of your business. If you're a business that has 1,000 small customers, it might look very different than if you're a business that has two critical customers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a handmade seller but you sell to two or three major clients, it could be mission critical that those clients' needs are met while you're gone or something goes sideways. So it really depends on the nature. But if the high level sort of stepping back and saying, if you could have a person that you could trust that could say, hey, there's an emergency, if there's something goes wrong, can I get you? Can I ask you? Can I reach you? Whatever your needs may be. And make sure that with that individual, you define very distinctly what an emergency is or what something urgent is. Like you want to make sure either that person has the ability and common sense to make that judgment, or you've clearly outlined what that looks like so that you're not being also bombarded on your vacation, that you truly do have peace of mind and you're shutting off and that they know the difference, because sometimes our end user, our client, or our customer emergencies aren't real emergencies and you don't need to be interrupted on your vacation for those things, but some truly are. So you want to make sure the person you're putting in charge as your 2IC has the ability to distinguish between what truly is an emergency and what is not.
Yeah. And I mean, I think in most cases, it's really going to be like, unless they hear directly from you, they don't do anything. For most of us, that will be the case. But one of the reasons why I left mine with my neighbor was just because I knew that, you know what, if the house did burn down or it did flood, they would be the first to see it, right? Like they
Exactly.
would know, and they would know. I mean, I think most of us do that anyway when we leave. We sort of let one of the neighbors know, like, hey, I'm going to be gone. Can you just keep an eye on things? Like, keep an eye on the yard or keep an eye on, make sure there's no packages sitting outside the door, or mail piling up or anything like that, right? They're already kind of keeping an eye out for you. So they can be a great person that you can, and if they're not somebody you want to trust with your hard drive, leave the hard drive with a friend or a close family member or something like that. but give your neighbor the contact information. Like just say, if anything goes wrong, call this person and they'll know how to get a hold of me quickly.
I can think of a time when I was on vacation and you reached out to me because I went on vacation and decided to really step back from social media. And so I thought, I don't want to be checking in on things. I really wanted like a digital unplug, and I felt good about it. So I was very removed from being online. I was still receiving text messages, and I was on vacation in Arizona, and I get a text message from Melissa saying, have you been on Twitter lately? And I said, no, not at all. She's like, you better go check Twitter. And of course, my account got hacked. Someone had stolen my content, was posting about it. I was none the wiser. I had my notifications off. I was completely checked out of that platform. And I was so grateful. And I didn't assign you as my 2IC, but you were that day. Because I ended up spending, a day and a half of my vacation accessing cease and desist language and trying to get back my content. And it was a complete gong show. But I can't imagine had that been left to go on for 3 or 4 or 5 days or longer,
Yeah.
just the more work I would have come back to. And this is nothing life-threatening, and there was no loss of revenue to me in this case and so forth. But it was a major issue that I had to deal with, and being able to catch it in the bud saved me so much time for when I got back to work. So I was eternally grateful, and it was so good. So just even from a protecting your brand perspective, having somebody who's aware of your content and keeping an eye on things is not the worst idea either.
And social media is one where things can go awry very quickly. And if you get hacked, usually people who are hacking are doing it purely for mischief. So, they might be posting really questionable content on your profile and, things that you don't necessarily want associated with your name. And they're just doing it for a lark. One of the things that social media has gotten much better at in the last couple of years is most platforms have a like dual authentication system or two-factor authentication, where if anybody tries to log in, they have to go, a warning goes to you at different emails and text, so that there's multiple steps to go through before anyone can access your account. And hopefully you've got that turned on for all your platforms. Definitely Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all have that. And I've noticed too, I can't remember who it was, where they allowed, it was Facebook, because a friend made me a trusted contact for their account. You can now make a friend or two trusted contacts so that if something does happen, Facebook will allow them to act on your behalf. And so I could see that coming to Instagram as well, with Facebook owning Instagram and probably platforms like WhatsApp and so on. Those are things to keep an eye on. Security measures change rapidly in the social media world. So it's always a good idea, regardless of whether you're going away on a trip or slowing things down for a bit, to just kind of check those out every now and again. And most of them will have something you can do. Facebook usually has it quite visible, where you can do like a security check on your account to just make sure that you've got all the things in place that you should have in place. It's worth doing that every 6 months or so.
For sure. Making sure you have things buttoned up before you go away, because part of taking time off might include taking a break from connectivity. And if that's the case, you don't want to come back to something that's an even bigger mess than when you left. I think it's also important to make sure you have a hard date. We talk about sort of planning and communicating with both, your clients, if you have any VAs or contractors that you work with, but having a hard date for last requests, I think, is important if you're planning for time away. So if this is the start of the year and you know that in 3 or 4 months you're going to be taking off for a month, I think it's important to work that backwards in your calendar and decide not only what your last hard date of requests, so whether that's orders or communication or help requests or follow-ups or anything, but what that date is, and then make sure that you've given your customers enough of a lead time on what that hard date is. So you kind of need 2 dates in your calendar, what that hard date's going to be, and then back it out, whether that's 2 weeks in your line of work or if that's 6 weeks or whatever the number is, but backing that out and making sure that that is really crystal clearly defined and evident on all of your platforms. So you want to make sure whether that's in an email you're sending out, your newsletter, whether that's something you post on social, but just sort of letting know that, hey, I'm stepping back for a bit, and if you want to do business with me, here's when you need to have everything in and done by.
Yeah, and you can start that a few months out, like really subtly. It can be something that just goes in your email signature. It just says, right under your name, just says, just letting you know, as you know, I will be away from July 1st to July 31st. And it gets thought process in their head. So you're not saying at that point yet that, here's the hard deadlines or anything, but you're letting them know 3 months out that there is going to be this period of a month coming up where you're going to be unavailable. And then maybe 2 months out is when you send out actual notification to clients or customers and say, just letting everybody know that I'll be away from July 1st to 31st. I will not be available during that period. But if there are any pieces or tasks or projects or whatever the language is that you use in your business that you want done prior to me leaving, this is the last date that I'm able to accommodate you. And then as you get closer to a month, you can send out another reminder. And like Lisa said, you're going to have to back this up based on your business. It might be, on your Etsy shop, you have a notification on your banner that says the shop will be closed from July 1st to 31st. Last orders ship out on June 21st. Something like that. But it's not hard. The hard part is doing the planning, is doing the stepping back and figuring out where you need to put each of these pieces in. And this is something you can also do at Christmas too. I do this every year at Christmas. I just send an email out to all my clients, just letting them know, usually 2 weeks before Christmas, that I will be shutting down my office from December 23rd to January 2nd or whatever. And I won't be available during that time. And I wish them all a very happy holidays, and nobody will be upset. I can pretty much guarantee you, as long as they have the lead time they need, no one is going to be upset. They'll just be like, oh, okay, have a great holiday or whatever, So,
well, and I would add to that just quickly that it's not only that they won't be upset, people may decide to make bigger purchases from you knowing you're not going to be around. So if you don't say anything and then they go to buy from you and your shop's closed, they may find another place to buy from, especially if you're in, I even think about what you said, the baby crochet hats. If that's our example today, if you don't tell people that you're closed when they go to buy from you and you're not there, they go, oh, well, I'll just find somebody else who makes beautiful crocheted baby hats. If you tell your customers up front, in my head, I'm going, well, oh gosh, I've got, my nephew's first birthday is coming up, and I'm going to actually put my orders in now to make sure I get what I need. And therefore you've retained that customer relationship. So that customer's not going to go away, and it's a lot more expensive to acquire customers than to retain them. And if you can do some hand holding and some of this communication with your customers ahead of when you're taking time off, there's not only a greater revenue upside for you when you're not going to be bringing in revenue when you're away, there's also a customer retention piece to that says, I gave you the heads up, customer's appreciative, and you've made a sale, and then they're there when you return. So I think there's that side as well to it.
Yeah, it's actually a great way to upsell yourself. So let's say that you make earrings and necklaces and you sell mostly through Etsy or craft markets. But let's say you have like 3 or 4 boutiques in your city that sell your jewelry, and if you contact them, let's say you're leaving for a month, and let's say 3 months out, you drop by to drop off an order for them, and you just let them know, you know what, I'm going to be away for the whole month of July. I just want to make sure that you're going to have enough stock to get you through until I'm back in August. Like, do you want to double your next order? Right? Because I'm going to be gone. So it's a great way to you're going to have to do some more work up front. You're going to have to make some more earrings and necklaces. But whereas if you had just told them the week before that you're going to be away, they might have just been like, oh, okay, well, we'll catch you when you get back. But this way you are going to be making money while you're gone, because you've already made sure that they've got enough stock to get them through until you're back. So you don't want to miss the sale just because you're going away. And you shouldn't have to miss a sale because you're going away. You just have to give people warning.
Exactly. We had a great conversation over the last couple of weeks on pricing and around discounted pricing. One of the opportunities you have if you are leaving, and depending on the nature of the product you create, if you are in sort of a product-based business, would be also to offer a discount if you're going away. So if you know that this might be a time to clear out some of your inventory, letting people know that you're going and that you're having a sale, it's kind of a win-win for, to your point, your customers, but also for a way for you to move some inventory if you're in a position where you need to kind of refresh stock. this is a good way to go out and offer a bit of a pre-holiday sale on things. And it would be it would make sense to offer discounts at this time period if that was something that you needed to do for your business.
That's actually a great idea, is sort of, when you're hopping by that boutique to drop off their next order and just say, hey, I'm clearing out these styles. I'm going to be away on vacation and I just want to get my stock levels down to a low number while I'm away. Like these items are going to be on sale, offer them to them at a discount. And then you say, after they've made a lovely order, because if they can get it on sale and they can sell it at a sale price, like that's also a bonus for them, or they can sell it at full price and make a little extra money. But then you also say to them, by the way, when I come back in August, I will be dropping off like a sell sheet of my fall styles. Like I have really cool stuff coming this fall. Like I can't wait to show it to you. So I'll be stopping by in August and we can go through and we can pick out some things for you to carry for the fall. Okay. So that way you're planting the seed in their head that you're coming back. You're giving them a deal on some older inventory right now, but you're coming back in the fall and there's going to be new cool stuff that's just going to be like amazing. And they're going to be so excited to have it in their shop. And you can do the same thing on your Etsy shop. Just throw a sale before you leave, like clearing out all the old stuff. The shop's going to be closed for 2 weeks while I'm gone. But when I come back, I am going to have 10 new products specifically for the fall or whatever, and I can't wait to show them to you. And it creates a little bit of excitement and anticipation while you're gone.
Exactly. And this is something, I mean, we're still sort of even under this umbrella of planning, is that when you're sitting down at the beginning of your year to plan out your year and you're forecasting your revenue levels, your inventory levels, plan this into it. Like if this is something you see that every year I am going to take, maybe it is 2-3 week breaks throughout the year. Make sure when you're planning your forecasting that you're taking into account those dips, because you might need to adjust your inventory and your buying patterns to support that if this becomes a pattern that you do on a regular basis. So this should be something that, so that you're not going into it thinking you're going to be selling X amount of widgets all year long, when in fact that there's going to be real dips and valleys if you do tend to take extended time away. And this sort of normalizes that if you can kind of, it might be as simple as forecasting over 11 months instead of 12, knowing that 4 weeks out of the year, you're just not going to be doing active selling. And again, it can be very industry specific, but I think, at a high level, you can kind of apply this concept to whatever line of creative work you're in.
Yeah, I think it's important to all businesses, especially in the creative field, tend to have down periods, like natural down periods, and natural high periods. If you are a maker, so somebody who's making handmade goods, you are probably very busy during the fourth quarter. That is when you probably sell most of especially if they're very gift oriented. You're probably going to want to make sure that you're home by August, because August is probably going to be when you're ramping up your production levels so that you have inventory for craft fairs, for your Etsy shop, for your Shopify shop, however you're selling. Maybe July is when you go away. We mentioned a wedding photographer. So a lot of wedding photographers also do seniors portraits and baby photos. They tend to be very busy in the summer, right up until like early fall.
I thought you meant senior citizens.
No, grade 12. Sorry, I'm using American terminology.
You said seniors, and I was like, do they have a season? When do seniors get their portraits done?
Grade 12.
Okay, I'm back. I got it.
So those are usually done in the spring, right? They're done before grad actually happens. Graduation portraits. There we go. So, if you're a photographer, your natural down period, because I think there's probably a fair number of people who get married at Christmas and New Year's as well. So you might have another little burst of activity there, but probably February is going to be your natural slow period. So embrace it. Maybe you go to Hawaii for a month, or you go on a cruise, or you travel to the Southern Hemisphere, or you go skiing or snowboarding or something like that. But you kind of embrace that natural downtime. If you have children, it's going to be harder, obviously, because you're going to want to spend your downtime with them. I think you have to kind of look at where the natural ebb and flow is. And if you serve clients, like from a coaching perspective or a teaching perspective, your natural downtime probably is going to be the summer. Like if you do public speaking at all, summer is very quiet for that kind of thing. But if you are somebody who does paintings, maybe your time where you make a lot of money is during the summer. Maybe you're selling at markets or outdoor festivals, or I don't know. This year's going to look very different for
Yeah,
everybody just because we're not going to be able to do a lot of those things. But I do know farmers markets are back up and
mhm.
running. So take a look at when you can naturally embrace some downtime. It might coincide very nicely with natural downtime for your family. But in some instances, maybe instead of taking a month off in the summer, you take 2 weeks off in the summer with your family, but you take another 2 weeks off during that natural period of downtime and just use it as a way to kind of rejuvenate yourself.
Well, you know what? And it's actually, I feel like this should be its own episode, but making the most of downtime in your business, I actually think we could do a whole episode on that. I was thinking when you were saying that about how your industry might have downtime, but maybe you still need to work. So, to your point, exactly, like it might be a slow period at Christmas for, like, I think about a photographer friend of mine. I thought this was brilliant, and maybe this is old news in the photography world, but it was the first I'd heard of it. She sent out notes kind of in early December, and it basically said, I know that Christmas is when family is in town, and so if you have family in town and you want to get a family portrait done on December 25th or 26th or 27th, reach out to me, and I would like the opportunity to shoot some of your extended family. And I thought, what an interesting revenue opportunity. Like when the whole world is closed on the 25th of December, to
You
have,
be open.
yeah,
Yeah.
you be open. And I just thought that was such an interesting spin on it. And I think there's, in every niche, in every industry, there could be really fun ways that you could find opportunities to keep your income steady when the rest of your competitors are on the beach in Maui. You're hustling and so I feel like that actually could even be its own
Yeah.
episode, but that just
It,
made me
it,
think of that.
so I come from the retail world from both sides of it. And, in the retail world, generally things are closed on Christmas Day. It's a little more open now, but when I was working frontline retail, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Easter Sunday were the 3 days of the year that we were closed, or that
Yeah,
everybody was pretty
totally.
much. But I worked in a pharmacy, and there are laws around pharmacies needing to be open within a certain mile radius. We would open on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, and then another pharmacy nearby would pick up the slack and do Easter Sunday. And we would only be open for 4 hours. But I mean, people don't stop getting sick at Christmas, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're sick and you need medicine
Yeah.
from a script wise, a prescription count wise, it would be one of our busiest days of the year. And people would be so grateful that you were open. And that sticks in their head for the rest of the year,
Yeah.
right? That's that pharmacist, that really nice pharmacist who got me my medicine on Christmas Day. But then the flip side of it is when I went to work at the head office level, the month of December is very busy for almost every retailer out there. And from a head office support level, there was nothing for us to do. The stores didn't want us around. They're like, just get out. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
busy. We don't need to hear from you right now. Right. So we would usually slow the office down to skeleton staff for the 2 weeks of end of December, beginning of January, because there was just really nothing for us to do. So, and a lot of companies do that. If their clients are not around, there's really no point for them to be around.
Yeah. So when you're planning out your year, it's good to look at what your clients' natural downtime is and see that if you can match that up with when it works for your, and it doesn't always match up, but I think if your business is anything cyclical, seasonal, or your clients have a predictable pattern as to when you see them spending less time and money with you, those are, great opportunities to match your own vacation time up with.
Yeah, but I definitely think we could do an episode on ways that you can capitalize
Mm-hmm.
on some of that downtime
I think so
that
too.
is maybe thrust upon you rather
Yeah.
than downtime that you actually want to take.
Yeah. Well, to your point, like if you don't have to take time off in the summer and want to keep working, and yet you're finding business is slumping because everybody else is off, which is a natural in the Pacific Northwest here. I mean, I just find July and August are just slower business times, when that is not changed from when I was in commercial banking to being a
No.
cookbook writer. Like it doesn't matter. It's still kind of there's just a different I don't know. There's a different mindset that comes in some of our peak summer months. But
Oh yeah, the weather's nice, the days are longer. Nobody feels like working when it's hot. There's a reason that, equatorial countries take a siesta during the
yeah,
middle of the day. It's too hot
hot.
to think, right? I know a lot of places have air conditioning and things like that, which actually, on the west coast of Canada, air conditioning is not common like it is in other parts of the world that are
Totally.
warm all year. So, you know what? When it gets hot in my house, it's hot in my house. I don't have an escape. And your brain slows down. It doesn't think. You're not sharp. You feel sluggish. You just I just want to go outside and read a book.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I actually made note of is that summer is actually a nice time if you are not going away, but maybe there's a bit of a slump or there's mind shift that happens. It's a great opportunity to meet your clients in person, and I think that at this time of year, sometimes we all want to be outside more. It's lovely to find a patio. There's things have slowed down a little bit, and it might be customers that you have a digital relationship with where it's constantly emails and phone. And we've talked about in other episodes, we've talked about the downsides of commuting and driving into the city for a meeting. But if this is maybe the time where you're traveling to a city where major customers are, or you're having a staycation at home with your family, but it's an opportunity to have a lunch with a client on a patio in just a more casual setting, it might prove advantageous for some customer relationship building, possibly some customer gratitude initiatives, things like that.
You never know where it might lead.
When we talk about planning ahead too, about, letting your customers know your hard date for orders or when you're going to be leaving, I think it's really important to plan a buffer day or two when you come back. And I think sometimes we forget that. And it was a practice I had when I was in banking. I never took meetings those first 2 days back after an extended vacation. That was a time to get organized, get caught up, figure out what was going on. What did I miss? I think you should apply the same strategy, even if you're a small,
Oh,
soul,
100%. Yeah,
100, right?
absolutely.
That you need to make sure when you're coming back, those days, don't be fulfilling orders. Don't be planning some big initiatives for those first couple days when you get back. Make sure you've blocked a couple days out to get back up to speed and get reacquainted and get your head right again, and just really so that you're not up against the wall hitting running, because I feel like all the effects of that vacation are going to disappear quickly if you don't allow yourself a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah, if you're able to, if you utilize an out of office system on your email,
Which you
you
should.
know, yes. Yeah, you don't want clients emailing you and waiting a week to get a reply because they don't know you're on vacation. But ideally, you've warned them many times, so they should know you're on vacation. But it could be a new client trying to
Mm-hmm.
reach you through your contact form on your website. So you do want some kind of out of office notification or something coming on. And let's say you're coming back on the 1st of August, like that's when you are physically back at work. Just put on your out of office that you're coming back on August 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Just give yourself those 2 days to go through your email, to see if any orders have come in, to see if there's anything you need to deal with, and just give yourself those 2 days where you are back at work, but nobody needs to know you're back at work. I do this
Mm-hmm.
all the time. It just makes the reentry process so much smoother because you're going to have a lot to deal with when you get back. The last thing you need is like 100 voices in your ears asking for things, right? Like
Right.
let yourself get caught back up and then unleash those voices. And you'll be able to deal with people much more calmly. You won't get snippy or short with anyone, and you will still feel the after effects of your vacation. The calm
Yeah.
will still be there.
And on the note of the out of office, which I think is a standard these days, and if you definitely don't have one, you need one, but also is just the overall umbrella of automating as much in your business as you can. So schedulers, whether it's Planly, Tailwind, Buffer, Edgar, there's so many, but make sure that you are taking advantage of all the automation that's available to you that wasn't available 5 years ago. It's pretty slick now. You can have content still coming out, whether that's through your channels or through your blog posts or podcast episodes or whatever it is, but you can still have that coming out and maintaining those connections with people, staying in the algorithms. You can have that all continue through the use of automation. So if you're not already employing some of those automative tools in your business. You certainly don't want to start 2 days before you're going on vacation,
No.
but as part of your planning process, definitely give some thought to incorporating more of those. And there's so many out there, and it completely depends on what you like to do in the nature of your business. Getting that element of automation is make your vacation or your time away from your business that much better, because you're not worried about some of checking up on some of those things that these days are critical, and social media is and can be a very critical part of a lot of people's business.
Yeah, and if you are somebody who is a content creator, so let's say you're a blogger, maybe you're a food blogger, a lifestyle blogger, or a YouTuber, or something along those lines where your business model relies on you getting content out, you're going to want to work ahead. Let's say you decide to a lot of food bloggers take the summer off because it is a slower time for us, unless you are in the canning or preserving or gardening niches, then summer is your jam. Jam, preserving, get it?
I'm going to edit that out, and I'm just kidding.
No, but if you're a content creator, then you're going to want to be creating that content before you leave, so that it's all done, it's scheduled, and you can have posts going out about summer salads and grilling recipes while you're off camping in the middle of nowhere. Most of the really serious bloggers that you see out there, the ones who are running six-figure businesses, there are many bloggers out there who do that. That's how they work. They're roasting turkeys in August to have them ready to go for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Part of why they do that is because a lot of them do take at least a month off in the summer, or they have a significant slowdown in the summer. Plan an editorial calendar. Like, this is something we talk about all the time at FBC. Like, create an editorial calendar. Do it at least once a quarter, where you're blocking out the content that you're going to be putting out there, and you're weaving in any sponsored content. A lot of bloggers do sponsored content, and those have specific times where that content is expected to go out. And if that interferes with when you want to take a vacation, you've got to plan all that in advance. So having an editorial calendar, working as far in advance. Listen to last week's episode if you missed it on batching and time blocking, because that's exactly the type of content that lends itself, or the type of tasks that lend themselves very well to batching. Things like writing blog posts, shooting videos, taking photographs, editing. If you're in food, recipe testing, all those things, styling, those are all very batchable tasks. So, work on those as far in advance as you can, and have that content lined up so that you can go away and you don't miss a beat. It's very easy to keep a content business running while you're taking a considerable amount of downtime.
And don't feel overwhelmed that you need to create all of that content in a week or 2 weeks or something. Like, I think if you're planning out your year, if you know that you've got to shoot 4 weeks of content because you want to take 4 weeks off, you can spread pre-doing that content over 6 months leading up to those 4 weeks. Yeah. So, the batching episode is a great one, I think, but it's not about sort of doing that all, saying, well, I don't even have the time to meet my day demands. How am I going to have the time to shoot 4 weeks in advance? And it really is about chunking that up and tackling it in small bits over the course of the months leading up to your time away from your business. So
yeah, I mean, if you publish once a week, that's 4 blog posts. If you publish twice a week, that's 8 blog posts. All you have to do is 1 extra blog post a month leading up to August, and you've got your content ready to go. Like, you don't have to do it all, the month before you're about to leave. But that's where you need to have an editorial calendar, and you need to start planning that kind of content in advance. With a content-based creation business, you can also republish old content. So go through, if you've been doing this for a long time, you probably already know this, but if you've been doing this for a long time, you probably have great summer content already that could use a little brushing up and tidying off and a little SEO tweaking and maybe some new photos. And you do all of that in advance and then just republish it while you're away on vacation. And for a lot of your audience, if it's an article that is more than 2 years old, most of your audience probably didn't see it the first time around. So they're not even going to notice, especially if you've rewritten parts of it. And then that's a great way to repurpose old content without having to come up with something brand new. And it will probably also help you appease the Google gods, because you've worked on the SEO and you're making sure that you're bringing old content to the front. All those things help with your SEO.
Exactly. Getting in front too of planning is, I mean, this speaks specifically to the summer, but you can get in front and plan some summer themed content or summer themed products. Like if you are in the business of making something, a handmade seller, that you've got products or digital content downloads, products that are summer themed or themed around the time that you're not going to be there, creating that special bit that is something they can access on their own, that your client can access on their own. Keeps you relevant too. So it just keeps you front of mind, keeps you in front of those clients longer than it would if you sort of check out.
There's also other ways that you can look at taking time away from your business. I think one thing, I think we'd all love to be able to take a month off during the summer. I don't know that that's always practical for everyone, especially if you have family. Your spouse might not be able to get a full month off, depending on what kind of work they do. But maybe what you could look at doing is take that month off, be away for a month. But the first week that you're off and the last week that you're off are kind of partial weeks away. So you're sort of winding things down. You're still popping in and checking things out. And maybe you head off with the kids to a campground a week early. Your partner joins you in the second week. And that second and third week are the weeks where you disconnect completely. And then your partner goes back to work and you sort of do a gradual reentry over that last week where you're kind of checking in just to see that everything's okay. Like it doesn't have to be like a full month away from your business. It can be like a hybrid, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
And on that note, as anyone with school age kids or young children would know, like I had to plan that every year when after Matt started school, I would start planning at the beginning of the year when he was off. We might not be going anywhere. Like we certainly are not going away anywhere for 8 weeks. But if I'm the one working from home and I'm trying to do my business and now my child's home, it's not that I'm taking time away, but I am not able to give what I was able to give last week to the business. So when I'm doing my planning in the early part of the year in February and March, I'm looking at the summer going, it's not that I'm planning for time away. I'm planning to only work 2 hours a day, or I'm planning that I'm not going to be able to string together 6 hours. I'm going to have to do 6 hours, but it's going to be, 2 in the morning before he gets up, and then 2 in the day, and then 2 in the afternoon. Or I'm going to look at summer camps that I've got them booked in and say, okay, I can get 3.5 hours of work done for this 1 week. So it is just about looking at the fact that the way you do work might change during those periods of times as well. If you have school age children that are home, this is again during the pandemic, everybody's kids are home, but in normal circumstances, we'd all be gearing up for kids being home for July and August.
Yeah, and another thing to remember is that during the summer, there's a lot of teenagers out there who are looking for extra money. And, if there's a kid in your neighborhood who's 13, 14, who can come to your house for a few hours a day and sort of entertain your younger ones while you get some work done, that's an opportunity as well for those of you who maybe don't have daycare options or things. But, I know a lot of moms out there who put their kids in daycare during the summer for a couple of days a week just so that they can have those 2 uninterrupted days each week to get work done. And then the other 3 days are with the kids, like doing fun stuff. So there's so many different ways that you can balance things out. And, maybe you take 3 weeks in the summer, but you take 3 weeks in the winter. Our web designer goes to Hawaii for a month in January. His family comes with him for a chunk of that. For the rest of it, he stays there. Where we live, it's very dark and gloomy in the summer. A lot of people are in the winter, and a lot of people suffer from seasonal affectiveness disorder and things. So it's very common for people here to head to a sun destination in the winter just to literally get sun for their mental health. So he's not on vacation the entire time that he's there. They do have a few weeks that are vacation, but the rest of the time he's working, but he's just working in a different environment. And so this is the beauty of running your own business, is that you can really be very flexible in how you do things, and you can get very creative with how you do things. And when you take time away, and when you're still working, but you're doing downtime, and when you're like full on in heavy production mode, it's not something you're going to figure out right away, but you will notice as you do this more and more that there are rhythms to your year. And those are going to change. If you have kids, those are going to change as your kids get older. There is going to be a point where they're in their late teens and they're not going to want to be around during summer vacation, right? They're not going to want to go with you camping or that kind of thing. So, you want to make sure you can enjoy that time with them while they're still really into it.
You're exactly right when you said this is the whole reason most people got into working for themselves creatively, to be able to have that flexibility. If you can plan ahead and sort of take those steps, I think it actually gives us a life that is the best of both worlds, and that we're able to take these extended vacations that I know were almost harder to take in my old life. But it just requires a lot of upfront planning and just a few checks in place. And then you can really keep your revenue stream going, keep your clients happy, and not come back to any major surprises when you come back from the much needed vacation. I think businesses really need structure and boundaries, but creatives need, freedom and space and time to breathe, and sort of just being able to marry those two together is part of the balance of all of this.
There is actually one more thing I just wanted to address because I do think it's important, and that is getting help. Having a VA who can take on some of these tasks while you're away. It's things as simple as going through your email, pulling out the ones that are really critical that you need to look at, but being able to handle the rest of them through templates or a filtering system of some kind. A VA can also make sure that your social media scheduling is working and that things are being published, and they can answer any website inquiries. They don't have to work full time while you're gone. A lot of those tasks are things that can be handled with 2 or 3 hours a week. And if you've got a VA who you've been working with, obviously you don't want to hire somebody the week before you leave to do all this. Again, you need to plan ahead. But if you've had somebody who's been with you for 6 months to a year, they should be in a pretty good position by that point to be able to manage some of those tasks for you while you're gone. There's no reason that you should have to check your email every day. There's no reason that you should have to check your social media or all those things. Those are very easy tasks that another person can take over for you. When we did our month-long cross-Canada tour with Food Bloggers of Canada, we did not take our VA with us. We had considered it at one point, but we thought, you know what, it's better for her to stay at home and just handle small things, just take them off our plate so we didn't even have to think about them. Things like as simple as putting together recipe roundups for us or making sure that specific posts got published when they were supposed to, that maybe I wasn't able to prep fully before we left. Just all those small tasks. And, you know, it wasn't a ton of time that she was putting in, but it was a big load off of our minds. We knew we were going to be traveling places where we wouldn't always have great internet or internet at all. And there's nothing worse after being on the road all day and piling into a hotel room and discovering the Wi-Fi is really crappy and knowing that you need to get X, Y, and Z done. And instead of it taking you 5 minutes, it's going to take you 45 minutes because your connections are so bad or whatever. Like, it's stressful. You're tired, you're cranky. Mm-hmm. So just things like that. This is where having somebody who can help you, and we spoke about that a few weeks ago, hiring somebody before you need them so that you can get into that good rhythm with them. They're familiar with how your business works, and they can take over some of those small tasks for you. And if you've got somebody really great, you may not even need to shut down. Like, you may not even need to shut down your shop. They might still be able to process orders for you and package and ship things out. Like, it's really going to depend on your business and your comfort level and who you have working for you.
I know, it's a good point. They could be the person that ends up being your second in command.
You're second in charge, yeah.
Absolutely. I really hope that you, Melissa, and you, the listener, do get to take some time off in the summer or whenever it makes sense for your business in the upcoming months, especially after everything that's been going on this year. I think making time for that, even if it feels like it's impossible and that your business wouldn't survive if, you shut down or you took time away, but that truly, I think I said this at the beginning, that we both believe that it is critical that you step away from your business at certain times during the year to make it thrive and for its success, and that staying nose to the grindstone 365 is not in the best interest. Yeah.
No. It backfires eventually. You might get away with it for a few years, but then it'll backfire on you. And yeah, it's just really important. And just keep in mind that being away for a weekend or 3 or 4 days, those breaks are good and nice to have, but our brains really need that full 2 weeks to kind of have their wind down time. And then, there's always those few days where you kind of have to decompress before you really fully fall into your vacation and forget about everything
Mm-hmm.
else. And then there's always that little period of anxiousness towards the end of your vacation where you're going back. So even if you take 2 weeks off, you really only get one full week in there where you're really embracing your vacation. So it
Yeah.
is really important to take as long a break as you can.
Well, we are back next week and we're going to be talking about writing a book proposal. Well, I'm going to be talking a lot about that.
That's right. I am going to be practicing my interview skills next week. We're going to be talking to Lisa about how to get a book deal when you have a small audience. It is totally 100% possible
Mm-hmm.
because Lisa's done it. And not only did she do it, but she had a best-selling book.
I'm excited. That'll be a great convo.
It's going to be a fun one. We're going to dispel some myths and we're going to give you guys some practical tips on, if you've got something to say, we're pretty sure there's probably people out there who want to hear it.
Thanks for the chat on this Friday afternoon. And if you know a creative, a work from home seller, maker, designer, photographer, artist that you think might benefit, we appreciate you sharing the podcast with them as well. So.
Yeah, and we also just got our Instagram up and running. We would love it if you would stop by and say hello at And She Looked Up.
Well, have a great weekend.
You too. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links or resources we talked about in this episode. If you enjoyed the chat, please be sure to subscribe and you will automatically be notified when the new shows are released. And we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a review, tell us where you're listening from, or even just send a note to say hi. You can find us at andshelookedup.com or on Instagram under andshelookedup. Thanks so much for listening.